KPIX5's Phil Matier and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown what his takeaway was from what some are calling the barroom brawl.
I thought it was Kamala Harris 1, Roseanne Barr's knockoff 0.
Harris did do a good job, of course.
She did the best job. Of all those lawyers that serve on that committee, she was the only one that really understood how to cross-examine and put the witness in the worst light, no matter what the facts are. And that's what she effectively did. And unfortunately for him, he too only has a license as a lawyer.
Well,
what did she do?
Well, so first of all, she put him on the spot right out the gate and said, has anyone in the White House ever suggested to you that you open an investigation into someone? And he hemmed and hawed and could not answer the question.
So in other words,
he said, what do you mean by suggest? And all of a sudden, he just basically said, I don't know. And that was really telling.
How about the fact, though, that when he asked her back, the question was, well, what do you mean by? And she proceeded to go through the whole deal from a pure, unadulterated Google standpoint. She said, one synonym, which is embarrassing as all hell to you.
Yeah, because he said, what do you mean by suggest? Yeah. And she was like, imply. Yeah. She was like, imply, say, look at you funny. Like, she just sort of listed the whole thing. And she did quite good. And although I have to say, like, she was one of the only ones who did. It didn't seem like the other senators were listening to each other.
Say, overall, what is the impact of this going to be? I mean,
he was just great entertainment. That's all this is, Phil. And no one is really soliciting information and knowledge. It's one gamesmanship. That's what that hearing really was. They wanted to put him in a position where hopefully he would contradict something he said several days before, which then would set up the situation in which he could very well be charged with lying.
Well, I'll tell you, the person who, though, elicited the most information from him was Dianne Feinstein. She started out and asked him about the president's communications with Don McGahn, yeah. and he really revealed a lot. And he even said right there in the hearing that when the president removes a special counsel, it cannot, by law, be obstruction, which was kind of mind-blowing if you were paying attention and watched that line. He said, but even if obstruction does apply, blah, blah, blah. But he said it's not possible, which is amazing.
Okay, so quickly, who had the best questions for Barr? Who put on the best show?
Kamala Harris. Clearly, she had two or three of her opponents for the presidential nomination on the Democratic side. They went in the tank. She soared.
When she's in the role of prosecutor, she is very, very effective. But do you think that she'll get a bump from that? I mean, I saw a tremendous amount of coverage. All of the networks were using her questions in particular. But does that translate with the electorate?
Well, I mean, it may be that she gets a bit of a bump. She certainly sent out a fundraising email right after the hearing. But what's also as important is that the other presidential candidates like Cory Booker and Amy Klobuchar, who are also on that committee, did not really shine in that moment. So what we did see is Kamala Harris being sort of really the leader in that hearing in a way that the other candidates weren't. So at the very least, they didn't get a bump for sure, and she may have, and maybe she's at least has been able to raise some money from that interaction.
That setting certainly played to her strengths.
Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado announced his plans for the future on CBS this morning. Now, Bennet joins an already crowded field of Democrats. Here's a look at the other 20 Democrats who have thrown their hats into the ring and announced a campaign. The latest was former Vice President Joe Biden. So Phil Matier and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, how many Democrats can it take to run for president?
No. They're not all in yet. It's going to be at least 24. After all, the governor of Utah is thinking about running, and the governor of some other state is thinking about running. So we are really in a position where the people who can afford a Greyhound bus ticket will run.
What is this, like the Beta Breakers?
It's just kind of amazing. We've seen it in San Francisco, places that have ranked choice voting. You always get a number of candidates, a huge number of candidates, and they all can see a path for themselves through the algebra of ranked choice voting. And it seems like that may be what's happening here with these presidential candidates. They've all got this very complicated way that they're going to get the nomination.
But why does the party, what is it about the Democratic Party right now that is feeding this? Or is it the media? What is feeding this?
Nobody in charge. Nobody in charge. We don't have a czar on the Democratic side of the aisle. We don't have anybody that you must clear with if you really want to win. At one time, the Clinton operations provided that backdrop. They provided that method by which you got clear. You don't have any more. As a matter of fact, have you heard? We actually have a chair of the National Committee. You don't know who he is. You have not heard a word from him. He's not interviewed on any Sunday program and what have you. Guy's name is Tom Perez. He beat the good mayor of South Bend for the job. You don't even know the mayor of South Bend ran for the job. It's an amazing
Melissa, what's it like
amalgam.
covering this kind of thing when they roll through San Francisco? Nobody even knows who they are.
Well, I mean, so we've had a couple come through. We've had, Jay Inslee was at the Commonwealth Club the other day.
Beto O'Rourke, you were out
Beto
with him at
O'Rourke.
the Irish Cultural Center?
That's true, but I mean, sometimes they come through and you don't even have a chance to cover them because you go, I don't know how important this even is. This person isn't even polling at 1%.
Given the field, Mayor Brown, does Trump win?
At this moment, you would have to say Trump has the best hand toward a win. Although the polls show that there are 6, including Elizabeth Warren, that allegedly on a head-to-head beats Trump. But you know that's not an accurate poll because it's not head-to-head yet. We've got to get there. Once we get there, then it's a better time to say, at the moment, it's Trump all the way.
I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that there's not a gatekeeper. I figure, well, look, if these people want to get in the race, get in the race. But my question, as it always is, how does the field get narrowed? Because it's gotta.
Well, so, California has moved up our primary as several other states did a similar thing. So actually, in this primary that's coming up, it's going to be a little unusual in that you have to have enough money to run ground games in a number of states. You didn't have to have that in before. You could wait and sort of build momentum and raise money as you went along. And now it's just not the case. It's going to have to be winnowed down to 6 or 8 people by the time you get to Iowa, because let's say Jay Inslee comes from behind and wins Iowa. If he's only got a few weeks to then run in California, you just don't have enough time to ramp up, even if you have a strong showing early in one of those early states. So actually, I think we're going to have to see the fundraising numbers knock some people out of the way as we move into the primary season, because you just have to have a huge purse of money to compete very early on in the season this year. It's going to be interesting.